Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel MiTutorials. In this tutorial, I will be teaching you how to conditionally update a column in your dataset within the Power Query editor using the M code. Now, what do I mean by conditionally update a column in the dataset? Now, I have two different columns here. One is status and the other is the courier status. Now, for example, in the courier status column, when I look at the column quality of this particular column, I can see that there are 21% of the rows which have null values. Now, to understand why we have null values and to fix the null values in here, to replace the values, let's filter for null values in here. Now, when we look at the column distribution of the status column and when I hover over the cancel status here, I can see that 99% of the rows here stand cancelled. There are few rows here which says shipped delivered to buyer, which are about 2 rows, and same thing here which says shipped delivered to seller. But here the courier status for these rows says null. Now we have to update these null values. We have to treat these null values. So what do we do in this particular case? Wherever we have null values where the status here says cancelled, I would like to update the cancelled status in the courier status column, and wherever I have shipped delivered to buyer or shipped delivered to seller, I would like to update my courier status here as shipped. So this is how I will be treating the null values in my dataset. So let us see how we can do this. Let me get rid or remove the step that I have applied here of filtered rows. So let's click back on courier status here. I'm going to right click and select replace values. Now whenever I select replace values and I replace the column in here, all of the values that I have in this case, all the null values that I have will get replaced with whatever I enter in. Let's say for example, I'm going to find the null values here and replace with hyphen and click on OK. And now when I take a look at the distribution of the courier status column, I can see that all the null values have been replaced with hyphen here. But I would like to conditionally update. So how do I do that? The reason why I added the replace value step here is basically to get the initial set of code so that I don't have to write this manually. Now that I have got the code here for the replace value function, I can now edit this based on my requirement to conditionally update the courier status column. So let's just see how we can do that. So first of all, I'm going to bring this into new lines here so that I can read and understand this code better, so that you'll be able to understand this easily as well. So within the replace value function here, first it is looking for the null value and then replacing the null value with the hyphen. So let us first remove the null from here and type in each. Make sure everything here is in small case because this is case sensitive. And then I'm going to pass in the column name. In this case, it is the courier status. Now this is where we are updating the data, which is courier status column, where we are updating the null values. So pass in the courier status column or the column here which you are going to update first. And in the next section, it's basically replace the values conditionally. So let's remove this as well. And now I'm going to type in each, basically go through each and every row in the data set. And each, I'm then going to use an if statement. I would like to wrap that within an if statement because if is a conditional statement. And if my courier status column, courier status is equals to null. This is the first condition that I am checking in this particular column. If my courier status is null, only then you update the data in that particular column. So this is my first condition here. If my courier status is equals to null, followed by an AND statement. The AND statement here will check if my courier status is null and my status column here says cancelled. So I'm going to pass in my second column here which says status is equals to, within the double quotes here, I'm going to type in cancelled. That is the status that I have in my status column here. If my courier status is equals to null and status is equals to cancelled, then I would like to return the value in my courier status column here as cancelled. If this condition does not match, if my courier status is not null and if my status is not cancelled, then the if condition here should return whatever value that I have in my courier status column. So I'm going to pass in the courier status column in here. The value that I have in the courier status column will get considered in here. And now I'm going to click on confirm. So when I've done this, let's look back at the column distribution. I can see that the column distribution is not populated. Let me quickly click on refresh preview, and still the value distribution for the courier status column after we have replaced the value has not been populated. Now, one of the most common reason is because of the data type of that particular column. So let's quickly go back to the transform tab. Under data type here, right now it says any. Let's change that to text, and now when I look back at the courier status column, I can see that the value distribution has now been populated. And let's quickly change the column profiling here based on top 1000 rows. This is by default. I'm going to click on this and select column profiling based on the entire data set. Make sure to do that. That is when you'll be able to see the right information now. And now when I hover over this, it says that I have 8 rows which still have the null values. So let's quickly take a look at what those 8 rows are. When I filter for the null rows in here, and if I take a look at the status column, it says delivered to buyer, shipped, delivered to seller. Now we will have to replace or update the courier status column here with the value as shipped wherever I have the status which says shipped, delivered to buyer, shipped, delivered to seller. So to do that, I'm going to first remove the step here where I have filtered the courier status column, and then I'm going to click on this FX button here. Before I do that, let's quickly go back to replaced value here. I'm going to copy the entire code here so that it makes it easier for me to do it. And now click on change type 2 that I have here, and then select FX here. This will basically add a new step. I'm going to paste the code that I have copied here, and then scroll up, copy this change type 2 here and replace it with removed columns that I have here so that it refers back to the change type 2, and then get rid of this is equals to here. And now we just have to make some changes to this code where it says status is equals to cancel. I'm going to paste the value here that I have, which is shipped, delivered to buyer. I'm going to right click, copy this. I'm going to paste the status here which says shipped, delivered to buyer. And now I can also add in an OR statement here which says if my status is equals to, open double quotes, paste the code here, and instead of buyer, this needs to be seller. So if the status is equals to ship delivered to buyer or status is equals to ship delivered to seller, then this needs to be shipped, else courier status. Now let me click on confirm. Once I have done this, now if I look back at the courier status column, this is still not updated because if I go back to my transform tab, the data type is now changed to any back again. So all I have to do is I have this step here where I have changed the data type here to text. I'm going to drag this down here, and now when I look at the column distribution of the courier status column, I have shipped and I have cancelled values, and I no longer have any blank values in here. So let's quickly go back to confirm. When I look at the cancelled order in here, or when I look at the status which says ship delivered to buyer, ship delivered to seller, when I click on OK, I have my courier status here which says shipped. I don't have any other statuses that are available, which means that the code that we wrote here to update the courier status column is working. So let me just go back to this code and explain you in detail a little more so that you understand what exactly is happening in this code. All I'm doing here is in the first or the second line of code here is basically iterating over every single row in my courier status column, and then in my second or the third line of code here, it is now looking at every single row in the courier status column. This is the first condition that I have here. Whenever the courier status is null, only then go ahead and check for the my status column if the value in the status column here is shipped delivered to buyer, or if the value in the status column is shipped delivered to seller, then update my courier status column as shipped, else update whatever value that I have in the courier status column. If you don't update the else statement in here, it will return the blank values. So make sure to enter this as well, and then when you click on confirm, that's when the data gets conditionally updated in the column without you having to add any additional column into your data set. So this was a quick tutorial on how to conditionally update your data within the Power Query editor using the M language. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. You've learned something new today. Please consider subscribing to my channel for more such tutorials.